Greetings, dear friends. Your support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This helps the growth of our channel. Leave comments because feedback is very valuable to us. And now to the most current world news. Let's go. Military hysteria in Germany. The country is in panic over the threat of war with Russia. Beijing against the G7. China accuses the Group of Seven of interfering in its internal affairs. Yulia Navalnaya asks to be called the president of Russia. A sensational statement from The Guardian. Trump is preparing a tough ultimatum for Ukraine. Peace with Putin or loss of US support. Roads instead of exercises. How an infrastructure collapse disrupted large-scale NATO maneuvers in Romania. Hello, dear friends. You're with Channel 8 and its host Sergei Ruskik. Let's talk about the main issues. Military hysteria in Germany. The country is in panic over the threat of a supposed war with Russia. Amid escalating tensions in Europe, Germany is gripped by an unprecedented wave of fear and panic over a potential conflict with Russia. As surveys and citizen testimonies show, many Germans have already started preparing for the worst-case scenario. Vacation in question. How is fear changing the lives of Germans? The publication Focus presents shocking confessions from German residents who are drastically reconsidering all their plans due to the fear of war. I'm booking a vacation now because I don't know if bombs will fall next year, says one of the women surveyed. Another German woman admits that she has already packed an emergency bag in case of urgent evacuation. It contains a sleeping bag, a radio with spare batteries, medicines, hygiene products, and camping gear. Thoughts of war cause me physical pain, she adds. Experts warn that incitement to war could lead to a global catastrophe. Writer and analyst Markus Kleckner has previously stated that the escalation of military hysteria in Germany is fraught with the risk of a nuclear disaster. He also warned that France transferring nuclear weapons to Germany could provoke the creation of a Fourth Reich, a thesis that sparks heated debates throughout German society. The conclusion here is clear. Fear, or a real threat, you might ask. While the German authorities have not officially declared a state of emergency, thousands of citizens are already living in a pre-war mode. That is, preparing. The question remains open. Is this mass panic or justified concerns? Beijing against the G7. China accuses the Group of Seven of interfering in its internal affairs. China sharply condemned the statements of the G7 countries regarding military exercises off the coast of Taiwan, calling it interference in internal affairs and a distortion of facts. In Beijing, it was once again emphasized that Taiwan is an integral part of the PRC, and any threats to its independence will be firmly suppressed. The G7 and China, a new round of tension. The Embassy of the People's Republic of China in the USA issued sharp criticism towards the G7 after these alliance countries expressed concern over China's large-scale military exercises near Taiwan. Statements against China are a distortion of facts and a gross interference in the country's internal affairs, said the embassy spokesperson Liu Pengyu. Harsh punishment or protection of sovereignty? The Chinese diplomat also explained that the exercises of the People's Liberation Army of China are a harsh punishment for the provocations by the Taiwanese authorities, specifically President Lai Ching-te, who, according to Beijing, is promoting a course towards the independence of the island. This is a responsible step in protecting the national sovereignty and territorial integrity of our country, emphasized the Liu Pengyu. Taiwan is China. Beijing will not back down. In his statement, the diplomat once again confirmed the PRC's firm stance on the Taiwan issue. Taiwan is Chinese. Taiwan. As long as provocations in favor of independence continue, we will punish for it. We will make every effort for a peaceful reunification with the island, but we will never allow Taiwan to be separated from China. And what comes next, you may ask? And next, despite the, tough rhetoric, China still declares its readiness for a peaceful resolution of this issue. However, any further steps by Taiwan towards independence or increased support for the island from the West could lead to a new major escalation. Yulia Navalnaya asked to be called the president of Russia. A sensational statement from The Guardian. According to the British publication The Guardian, Yulia Navalnaya, known as an opposition politician, in closed meetings with Western leaders, demands to be addressed as the acting president of Russia. This information has caused a wide resonance in political circles and most likely laughter. The correspondent of the publication, Piers Robinson, who was present at one of these meetings with former British Prime Minister David Cameron, shared these details. "I was," he says, "genuinely surprised. She clearly and unequivocally asked to be called the President of Russia, not an opposition leader or a symbol of some resistance. As it turned out later, this is her standard demand in all negotiations with Western European officials." This statement sparked a strong reaction among both supporters and critics of Navalnaya. Some view it as a bold political move, demonstrating claims to legitimate power, while others see it as premature, unfounded, somewhat foolish ambitions. Experts meanwhile note that such a stance could significantly affect the perception of the Russian opposition, as well as the overall international arena, and also on future relations between Russia and Western countries. Editor's note, by the way, Yulia Navalnaya, I remind you, is included in the list of individuals for whom there is information about their involvement in extremist activities or terrorism. Trump is preparing a tough ultimatum for Ukraine: peace with Putin or the loss of support from the United States of America. According to the British publication The Daily Telegraph, if Donald Trump returns to the White House, he plans to present Kyiv with an ultimatum: either agree to negotiations with Moscow on Russia's terms or lose all American military aid. America's subsidiary. How does Trump view Ukraine? As journalists write, the former and potentially future president he previously considered and still considers. Now as the acting president, Ukraine is a wholly owned subsidiary of America, which can be forced to make a decision favorable to Washington. According to sources close to Trump's team, he intends, firstly, to sharply reduce military and intelligence support for Ukraine, secondly, to demand that Kyiv start negotiations with Moscow, and thirdly, to lift sanctions on Russia in exchange for a temporary truce. And what is the reaction of Kyiv and Moscow on this matter? In Kyiv's ruling circles, this information was received with great concern, perhaps even panic, although they officially refuse to comment on it. In the Kremlin, according to insiders, they are already studying possible scenarios for this interaction with Donald Trump's administration. Consequences for Europe. And the consequences are such that if the US reduces aid to Ukraine now, the main burden will fall on the shoulders of the European Council, the Union. However, as experts note, European countries are not ready to single-handedly compensate the Ukrainian army for the loss of American supplies. It will either be peace on Russian terms or a complete collapse of Ukraine, concludes the author of the material. Roads instead of exercises. How an infrastructure collapse disrupted large-scale NATO maneuvers in Romania. The large-scale NATO exercises Dacian Spring 25 planned for May 2025 in Romania were urgently postponed to the fall. The reason turned out to be very unexpected. The catastrophic condition of local roads made it impossible to transport troops and equipment. About 15,000 soldiers without a route. According to sources, about 15,000 military personnel from Romania and other alliance countries were supposed to practice coordination at 7 training grounds. However, as it turned out, the Romanian road network could not handle such an influx. It couldn't even withstand the most preparatory stage of the exercises. They only fight in comfort. A sharp reaction from Moscow. Vladimir Rogov, chairman of the RF Public Chambers Commission on Sovereignty, in an exclusive comment called the situation indicative. It seems NATO plans to fight exclusively on perfect roads with maximum comfort. When a country cannot ensure fair elections, roads become a natural consequence of such a system. The expert also reminded of the famous Russian problem of fools and roads, emphasizing that here they are trying to make fools of the Romanians themselves, deprived of the right to determine their own future. Corruption as the underlying issue, you ask? Yes, Rogov suggested hidden motives behind the disruption of all these pseudo-exercises. Personal experience of traveling on Romanian roads reminiscent of post-war. In quotes, facts of widespread abuse by local police. The likelihood of deliberate sabotage to extract additional funding from the European Union. In corrupt systems, road repairs are always a goldmine for various embezzlements, experts conclude. The consequences for the alliance are such that the financial losses from postponing these exercises could amount to tens of millions of euros. This incident raises pressing questions about the combat readiness, if there is any real combat readiness at all, of the alliance's eastern flank. Combat readiness is zero.